The wheel is so fundamental to how the modern world works that it is almost impossible to imagine life without it. Vehicles, machinery, pulleys, gears, almost every mechanical system in existence depends on the rotating circle in some form. And yet, for the first 99% of human history, nobody had one. Not because they were not clever enough, because the wheel is not actually an obvious idea, and the history of who invented it, when, and in what order is far stranger than most people expect. The most common assumption about the wheel is that primitive humans saw a log rolling and thought, wheel. That is not what happened. The rolling log idea has been repeated so many times it feels like history. But logs were used for moving heavy objects in a completely different way, as rollers beneath sledges. And the conceptual leap from a roller beneath a sledge to a wheel on an axle is not small. It is enormous. A roller and a wheel look similar. They function completely differently. A roller stays still while the object moves over it and must be constantly repositioned. A wheel rotates on a fixed axle attached to the vehicle. That is a different invention entirely. The wheel was not discovered. It was engineered. Here's the detail that consistently surprises people. The wheel was not invented for transport. The oldest wheels we have found were not on carts or vehicles. They were on pottery wheels, rotating discs used to shape clay, which appear in the archaeological record in Mesopotamia and the surrounding region around 4500 BCE. The concept of a rotating disc, a circle that spins on a central point, appears to have been understood and applied to pottery making for several centuries before anyone attached it to a vehicle. When wheeled vehicles do appear in the record, around 3500 BCE, again in Mesopotamia, they are already sophisticated. Wheels with axles, wheels with spokes in some cases. The technology did not appear primitive and then improve. It appeared already developed. This suggests that the wheel and axle combination was probably worked out theoretically before it was applied to transport, or that the pottery wheel tradition gave people a working mental model for what a rotating disc could do. The wheel gets most of the credit. The axle deserves most of it. A disc that rotates is not by itself useful for transport. What makes it useful is the axle, the fixed rod that the wheel rotates around, attached to a vehicle in a way that allows the wheel to spin freely. The engineering challenge is the interface between the wheel and the axle. Too much friction and the wheel does not turn. Too little and the wheel falls off. Getting that relationship right required precise woodworking, an understanding of load distribution, and materials that could withstand the stresses involved. The earliest wheeled vehicles found archaeologically, ox carts from the Eurasian steppe, wagons from Mesopotamia, show evidence of exactly this kind of careful engineering. These were not crude experiments. They were functional, load-bearing vehicles built by people who understood the physics of what they were doing. The wheel appears around 3500 BCE. Agriculture appears around 10,000 BCE. Writing appears around 3200 BCE. Humans have existed for 300,000 years. Why did it take so long? The most convincing answer is terrain. Wheels are only useful on relatively flat, smooth surfaces. In heavily forested, mountainous, or marshy terrain, a sledge, a pack animal, or a human carrying things is often faster and more practical than a wheeled vehicle. The wheel emerged where it was most useful: the flat river plains of Mesopotamia and the open Eurasian steppe. In terrain where wheels could not roll, they simply were not worth inventing. The idea was not beyond anyone. The terrain had not yet made it necessary. So, how did ancient humans invent the wheel? Not by watching logs roll, not in a single moment of inspiration. Through the accumulated understanding of rotating objects that pottery making provided, through careful engineering of the axle interface, and because the terrain of Mesopotamia and the Eurasian steppe finally made the investment worth it. The wheel was invented exactly once, somewhere around 3500 BCE, probably in the region between the Black Sea and the Caspian, and within a relatively short period, it had spread across the ancient world. Because once you have seen a wheeled cart, you understand immediately what it does. Some ideas need to be discovered. Others just need the right conditions. Like and subscribe if you enjoy these videos. I'll see you in the next one.